you for being here today. My name is Sude Dilah Serez YÄ. Today I will present our study, which is titled as a study on the examination of practical courses in gastronomy and culinary arts undergraduate programs. This study was conducted collaboratively with Professor Dr. Mehmet Sarıoğlan and Associate Professor Dr. Ayberk Bostan Sarıoğlan. In this presentation, I will first briefly explain the aim, scope, and methodology of the study. Then I will discuss the findings through graphs and conclude with the conclusion and recommendation section. The main aim of this study to examine and evaluate the practical course structures of gastronomy and culinary arts undergraduate programs operating in Turkey. Within this scope, this study focuses on the number of practical courses, their types, contents, and their distribution within the curricula. In addition, the study aims to identify similarities and differences among universities regarding practical education practices. Within the scope of this research, four main questions were addressed. What are the differences in the quantity and quality of practical courses? How are practical courses distributed across different fields? How are weekly practice hours and the ACTC structures organized? During which semester are practical classes concentrated? The research data were collected from the official websites of universities in Turkey offering gastronomy and culinary arts undergraduate programs. A total of 37 universities were included in the study. The collected data were analyzed in terms of course content, practical class hours, ACTC structures, and semester distributions. In this study, descriptive analysis was used as the research method. The subject of the study is the practical course included in gastronomy and culinary arts undergraduate programs. Although gastronomy education is fundamentally practice-based, there are still limited studies examining the structure of practical education in Turkey. Therefore, this study is expected to reveal the current situation, contribute to curriculum development processes, and support the alignment between education and gastronomy sector. Now I would like to present the findings of the study through the graphs obtained from the analysis. As seen in the graph, the majority of practical courses are concentrated in basic kitchen and cooking practices. In addition, Turkish cuisine, world cuisines, and pastry courses also occupy an important place within the curricula. However, contemporary fields such as molecular gastronomy and sensory analysis appear to have limited representation. This finding indicates that the traditional practice-oriented structure still remains dominant in gastronomy education. According to findings, practical courses are generally introduced in the third semester. Many universities tend to provide practical training after students complete foundational theoretical courses. However, a limited number of universities begin practical education as early as the first semester. The findings show that the most common structure consists of 2 hours of practical training per week. The proportion of highly intensive practical courses remains relatively low. This suggests that many programs attempt to establish a balance between theory and practice. In many programs, theoretical and practical courses hours are organized at relatively similar levels. However, some universities still appear to prioritize theoretical course loads over practical training. This reflects different institutional approaches toward gastronomy education. Practical courses are mainly concentrated during the 4th, 5th, and 6th semester. Among these, the 5th semester stands out as the period with the highest concentration of practical courses. While practical course intensity is relatively limited during the early semesters, it increases significantly during the middle years of an undergraduate education. The analysis of ACTC distribution indicates that the most practical courses are structured within the range of 4 to 6 ACTC credits. Courses carrying 5 ACTC credits appear particularly common. Higher ACTC values are generally associated with intensive practical training and professional internship courses. This graph demonstrates that significant differences exist among universities regarding practical course intensity. While some universities place greater emphasis on practice-oriented education, others maintain a more theory-based structure. These findings indicates the absence of standardization of structure among gastronomy and culinary arts programs. Overall, the findings indicate that the practical courses occupy an important place in gastronomy and culinary arts education. However, significant differences exist among universities regarding course intensity, course diversity, semester distribution, and ACTC structures. The findings also show that the practical courses are mainly concentrated in basic kitchen practices, Turkish cuisine, and pastry arts, whereas contemporary fields such as molecular gastronomy or sensory analysis remain limited. In addition, practical courses are mostly concentrated during the fourth, fifth, and sixth semesters, while practical training during the early years remains relatively limited. Another important finding is the variation among universities regarding the proportion of practical course ACTC within total program credits. While some universities place a greater emphasis on practical education, others maintain a more theory-oriented structure. Based on findings of the study, it is recommended that the practical courses be distributed more evenly throughout the curriculum. Increasing foundational kitchen practice courses during the first academic year may positively contribute to students' professional development processes. In addition, course contents should be diversified in line with contemporary gastronomy trends, such as greater emphasis should be placed on areas such as molecular gastronomy, sensory analysis, and sustainable culinary practices. It may also be beneficial to establish certain standards regarding practical course intensity among universities. Furthermore, increasing active hands-on training opportunities, improving professional kitchen laboratories, and strengthening industry collaborations may improve the quality of practical education. Finally, practical courses should be structured not only to develop technical skills, but also to support creativity, innovation, and problem-solving abilities. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.